Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2016 Ford Focus ST. Up front is a 2.0 liter turbocharged inline 4, and down below is a 6-speed manual transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this Ford Focus ST for two reasons. First of all, it's been almost 7 years since I've driven one of these cars. I've reviewed two on the channel many moons ago. Please do not look at those videos. They are very old and very terrible. So I'm excited to get back into the seat of one of these. It's been a long time, and let's see if my opinions have changed. But the second reason is also having to do with time passing, is the fact that this is now a 10-year-old car. And so we're going to be doing a little bit of a retrospective of not only today's market, but how this vehicle has aged now a decade later. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that 2-liter turbo under the hood. Well, that is still a somewhat popular engine used by Ford over a decade later. You see it in the Ford Maverick at its performance level in the Lobo. So it's a pretty good motor. It makes about 252 horsepower here in the Focus ST, and that was definitely plenty. This was a hot hatch. It was a fun sports version of the Focus, and it added that nice bump in power over the standard Focus that your mom or dad might drive. This is more of the fun uncle car than a parental unit. Now, like I said, paired to it is a 6-speed manual transmission. Feels wonderful, absolutely adorable to row through the gears. Has a great feeling in and out of gear. The clutch is friendly and approachable. It really is great. This is a completely stock car, and it's so nice in this format. It encourages you to drive in a fun manner as opposed to either begging you or punishing you. It's that friend that's always down for a late night taco run. That's what this car is, and that's how it feels to drive. Last but not least, of course, the Focus ST is front wheel drive. However, at the same time, you could get the Focus RS. That was the all-wheel drive 2.3 liter turbo Focus. That was the rally-inspired crazy car. This was the more toned down version, and so we only got 2 spinning wheels. How does it feel to drive the Focus ST? Well, I got ahead of myself a little bit earlier on. It's very fun, and it's very engaging. 252 horsepower, definitely enough to have fun with. You're not going to get in trouble with it. You're not going to find yourself in too many sticky situations. You know, you're not going to be doing big-time triple-digit drag races or digs on the highway. You're going to be able to have fun with it. You're going to row it through the gears, and it's going to make your morning commute just a little bit better. It's going to make your morning commute a little bit more engaged, and I like that a lot. Visibility is okay. It's where you start to lose me a little bit, but anything in this era isn't really going to have great visibility. However, we do have a backup camera, which is definitely nice for a manual car. Luckily, we do have snow tires. As snow comes in, good amount of power. I had fun doing that. Did I break all the rules? No. And that's nice. It's very nice. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 4 gauges and a screen. Off to the left is the tachometer, in the center is the fuel and coolant temperature, and off to the right is the speedometer. We do get that little information gauge up in the center. This was the era where Ford really started to hammer a bunch of information to its drivers, which I personally prefer, so I like to see that a lot, and you get that here in the Focus ST. On the steering wheel, on the left, we have our selectors for that gauge cluster screen, as well as our cruise control, and off to the right, we have volume, skip track, and phone options. Off to the left of the steering wheel, we do have a giant climate control vent, as well as our headlight and fog light switches. And moving on to the door, we have lock and unlock, power mirrors, and power windows. Moving into the center, up at the very top, we do get added gauges for our oil temperature, boost pressure, and oil pressure. Very nice if you're doing autocross or track day events, just to keep an eye on some extra things. Then we have our sync system. So this is a touchscreen infotainment system. And I have to say also, this has aged somewhat gracefully. Does this look like a brand new system? No, of course not. But for being a 10-year-old system, it's not faded, it's not weirdly distorted, it's not doing anything that I wouldn't want it to do. Doesn't feel like I'm using a Sega Genesis. It works well. And that's all I can really ask for, again, from a decade-old vehicle. Now, we do have a backup camera, as I mentioned, with the driving feel, so that is very nice. Again, 2 years before that was legally required. Down below that, we have the hazard switch, CD player, and a couple of buttons for the radio, like source, sound, tune, skip track, things of that nature. And then we have our climate controls. Dual zone climate, absolutely love to see that, especially in an affordable hot hatch. And we have our heated seats, which I am beyond soaking up here today. It is chilly, chilly, chilly. However, the Focus ST does not let me feel it here with its climate controls and heated seats. Then we do get a USB-A in a little cubby, get a 12-volt outlet, our traction control off, and heated steering wheel. Again, very nice to feel here today. And then the shifter. This is an aftermarket shift knob. However, as I mentioned, feels great, performs well, and it's everything I want out of a manual shifter. Back behind that, we do have our cup holders, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test, and much to the owner's chagrin, I am sorry, but the Focus ST does not pass the big friggin' bottle test. Now, the owner's other vehicle, the 2010 Subaru Impreza STI, that did pass. So, at least one of his 2 hot hatches does in fact pass. The ST Focus just isn't one of them. Then we do get a little armrest and the seats. Now, these seats are Recaro seats. These were an option back in the day. These are edging on being not big guy friendly. I think truly, at least at my size, 5'11", about 260, it's really going to depend on what I had for lunch if I'm gonna sit comfortably in these seats. If you're smaller than 5'11", 260, you'll be fine. But if you are a bigger fellow like me and you can't say no to a buffet, you might want to test fit one of these seats before you drive 8 hours to that Facebook Marketplace deal of the century. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats. So let's go do a back seat review. All right, getting in the back of the Focus ST, and this one is gonna be tricky. Yeah, it ain't great. I am smushed. Luckily, there are these like indents in the back of the seat that my knees are currently able to occupy, but not great. I would assume that these Recaro seats are a little bit bigger and chunkier than the standard seats. But yeah, not great. We do get to enjoy the sunroof up here, although it is a little frozen over, but that's okay. We do get a center console, 2 little cup holders in there. That's pretty much it. While I'm not super comfortable back here, this was a car that was turbocharged and manual and fun that you could take your buddies in. You know, this is kind of the perfect college car, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this drove one in college or had friends that had one in college. I had a bunch of friends in college that had this car, and so you could, you know, take everyone out, you know, go to the store, things like that, have fun on a back road. A lot of the colleges here in Illinois were in the middle of cornfields, so you go to school during the week, and on the weekends, you kind of hit the back roads, things like that. This was a perfect car for that. There also was the Fiesta ST at the time, which was even more affordable, but smaller. This was the first, you know, step up in the Ford performance fleet where the back seat actually did work decently well. Fiesta is a prison sentence to sit in the back seat, so this was very nice. You could actually get by with this, and I like that a lot. Nothing really too crazy to write home about beyond that. Let's hop into the very back. We'll take a quick look at the hatch, and then we'll talk about the looks. Right around the back of the Focus ST, we have a button in here, and nothing really crazy. We have a WeatherTech format that was not factory. We do have a Sony speaker. That is kind of nice. We get a little light off to the right. We do get a spare tire and things like that. But there you go. This was also another piece of the practicality puzzle when it came to the Focus ST because, again, you could fit buddies in the back. You could fit a ton of stuff in here. Moving in and out of dorms, this was perfect. Put the second row of seats down, and then it's perfect. So come in here, button like that, and you fold it down. You'll have to move the headrest or move that seat forward, and you can fold these down. So very, very cool. Very practical again, and you could still chuck gears, get all those turbo noises, take it autocrossing on the weekends, but take it to class on the weekdays or work or whatever it is. So very, very nice mix back here, and the hatch really solidifies that. Now we gotta talk about the looks. I think that the Focus ST has aged pretty gracefully over the last decade. It doesn't look very fresh or cutting edge, but it's a decade old. You know, it has 65,000 miles on it. This design was penned probably 15 years ago, and so I think it's held its overall look and it's aging gracefully for being an economy hatch with an angry little engine. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving another Ford Focus ST, but now not only a decade after it came out, but 7 years since I last drove one? How has my opinion changed? Well, luckily, my opinion hasn't really changed. I think I'm a little bit less wowed by this car just because I've driven so many cars since then. I've driven at least 1,500 different cars since the last time I drove a Focus ST. So I think the shine of it is a little bit gone. However, it's still an absolutely wonderful vehicle. It's still a great hot hatch. It still makes great power. It still looks good. It's still easy to live with. So those thoughts and feelings haven't changed in the slightest. What has changed, however, is the market. We do not get cars like this anymore, and I don't just mean the Ford Focus, which is no longer in production, but this car base price was $25,000 for the ST Performance version. Now, this had pretty much all the bells and whistles like the heated steering wheel, the Recaro seats, backup camera, all of those add-ons, which put this around $30,000. But we don't get cars like this for $30,000. The Civic Si is the only car that's really truly holding on to that value. And even then, I don't know, the Civic Si just isn't as exciting as this car was. So I think we've lost something very, very important, and it's this. It's this segment that I don't have to be hardcore. It doesn't have to be a Civic Type R. It doesn't have to be the Focus RS. It doesn't have to be the WRX STI. It doesn't have to be this blood-pumping, toe-curling, sell your soul to the devil machine. It can be fun and still be practical, and it can do so for not a huge price tag. Ford has nothing like this in their lineup at all, not even near it. You could say the Maverick Lobo, but that is not a replacement for this vehicle. And so it seems like I'm doing this more and more each day. Let's enjoy the Focus ST. Let's enjoy the Focus ST video I'm making here today. But we'll also have to mourn it. We'll also have to say goodbye to it. Say goodbye to cars like this, the cars that were able to do things like this and not cost an arm, leg, and kidney. So it's a happy day to be behind the wheel, but a sad day to be an enthusiast. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Ben for letting me borrow his Focus ST for today's video. He's absolutely wonderful. He also let me film his 2010 STI. Very appreciative of that, even in these cold and frigid conditions. There's nothing else I want to be behind the wheel than some hot hatches here today, and Ben made that possible. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.